My name's George Fletcher. I was born the year Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany, 1933. So that makes me 85. And I suppose really the earliest memory I have is I'm sucking my thumb. I'm very warm and I'm upside down. And I never really realised that until a doctor suddenly said, "You were in the womb," and some bloke said, "You can't do that." And he said, "Yes, you can, because your brain becomes active sometimes before you're born." And I said, and I remembered a lot of little things. I was born in Hot 9 on Castle Bromwich Aerodrome when they were building the Erdington Birches Green estate. And we moved into one of their houses. And I walked out of that house when my mother died, all those years later. And we were actually bombed out of that house as well. But my early youth was very stable, really. Well looked after. My mother always used to sit me in the clothes basket and give me the pegs to play with and make aeroplanes out of. I can always remember that. And my mother's name was Ida. And my father was a George, the same as me. And my grandfather on my father's side, he was a George as well. And they came from the Black Country. And when I was young, I spoke with a very strong Black Country accent. Yo, and it's Boston. And things like that. And I only changed when I joined the Operatic Society in 1968. But between that time, of course, I'd gone through a lot of things. I joined the Scouts, which I didn't like. And then I went somewhere else with a friend of mine and we joined the St John's Ambulance Brigade. I was about 13, I think. And then when I was virtually 14, one of my friends across the road from me was in the Army Cadets, and he said, "Why don't you come down?" So they'd just finished camp, their annual camp. They were just coming back. It was in the end of August. And you'd got to be really 13 and 9 months minimum age to join the Army Cadets at that time. And I was just underneath it really, but the officer shut a blind eye and said, "Right, you can join now." He says, "We'll just start you off at the proper time." And I joined, and I was in it right up until I went in and did my national service, which was January 1952. And I joined the cadets in end of August 1947. And I finished up as the company sergeant major in the Army Cadets. Well, I came back home and I bought myself a motorbike, and I used to wear black leathers and a corker helmet and a Mark IV Spitfire goggles, what they used to call Spitfire goggles, what the Spitfire pilots used to wear. And of course that's when I met Hazel, and I fell in love with her, for love at first sight. It was love at first sight. I looked at her and she smiled at me, and that was it. I was on my motorbike and I was with my mate, and he'd got a Douglas Dragonfly, and he lived in the flats at the side. And Hazel had come down to see a mate she'd known since she was 5 years old when she started school, and they'd been mates ever since. And they were playing with Rita, that's her mate. They were playing with the younger kids, the little ones, ball on the pavement, because it was paved. It was all paved. There was no road. It just road stopped there, and I parked my bike there, like. And of course, my mate, he said to me, he said, "I've been trying to get out with her," he said, and that was Rita. And she said, "She don't want to know, like, you know." I said, "No, all right, you know." Anyway, they spotted me, and I seen Rita say something to Hazel, and Hazel looked up, and I was standing there, and she looked up and she smiled at me. And that was it. And I can always remember, at the time, I thought, I looked at her and I thought, that's the one. And I fell in love with her straight away. And I went to her, I asked her if I could go out with her, you know. And of course I'd got my black suits on and my black helmet, and my bike was black, and I got big screen on the front and leg shields on it and everything. And I pulled up outside, and her mother was in the window. And she said, Hazel, there's a policeman coming here. And I did look like a policeman. And Hazel come to the, oh no, she said, it's George. And she said, George? Oh, she said. Anyway, I came to the door, and I actually asked the mother for permission to take to court a daughter, which is a thing that not many people have even dreamed of doing nowadays. And that's what I did. I asked the mother for permission to court a daughter. Anyway, I met her, and we courted for 2 years, and then we got engaged. And it was funny, really, because we were talking in our mother's bathroom, and Hazel was watching some smalls out for our mother in the basin, and I'm standing there chatting with her. And we got round to being married and everything, and I forget what it was I said to her then. And I said something to her, like, you know, like being married. And she said, are you asking me to marry you? I said, oh yes, I suppose I am, really. And she says, I said, do you accept? And she said, of course I will do, she says. And I said, oh, that's brilliant, you know. And of course we told our mum and dad, our old man was absolutely over the moon. My mother didn't like it at all, because my mother wanted me to marry somebody else. She got this young lady set up. It was a very nice, but she wasn't my type at all. And Hazel was very intelligent, Hazel was. Very intelligent girl, Hazel. And I liked her for that. And we've eventually got married and got engaged, and then we got married, and we used to have some, when we were courting, like we had fights. Nearly had a fight with Rita, a mate, because Rita tried all sorts of tricks to get rid of me, like, you know.
She couldn't stop the love.
And in the end, I threatened to slap her, you know, which I wouldn't have done, because I'm too much of a gentleman. But I threatened it, and she backed off. And then I had the happiest day of my life. We actually got married. I can always remember standing at the altar in Erdington Parish Church with our kid, my uncle, I should say. And I always called him our kid, because my dad called him our kid. He was my dad's younger brother. But he was like my big brother. He was like a big brother to me. And I turned around, and there she was. The music played up, and there she was, walking down the aisle on her Uncle Ernie's arm, because her dad had got killed in the war. He was a sergeant paratrooper. And we got married. And we lived in a bed sit on Chester Road, and I pass it regularly now. And somebody's living in it still. And we had 4 years in that bed sit, and it was the happiest times of our lives. It really set us up for married life. We had no stress, nothing. All we had to do was pay the rent. And we used to share the kitchen and the bathrooms and do the washing. We used to send our stuff, do most of our laundry through the Co-op laundry at the time. And we had sort of started for our family. We had our David first in 1966. He was first. I had a bit of trouble with having him at first. He went over his time, really. That's what the doctor said. And she had a bit of problems with him, but she was all right. And then we had Paul in 1972, I think it was 71 or 72. But that was nearly at Christmas. It was the 20th of December, his birthday. David's was the 24th of February, 66. Now, having had singing lessons, I suddenly started realising that I could sing the leads, something which basses very rarely ever got the chance to do. I used to play all the comedy parts. I played all the comedy parts. The old major generals and all that, and the old jolly old chaps and all this, you know. And actually what it did, it changed, playing all these different characters, it changed the way I spoke. And my mother once said to me George, she says, you haven't half changed since you've joined the Operatic Society. And Hazel was in the kitchen washing up at her mother's house. And I said, what do you mean, Mother? And Hazel was having hysterics in the kitchen. And my mother never even cracked it, like, you know. And I realised afterwards that she was right in she was right. Because I'd lost me black country accent. I've still got a Brummie accent, but I'd lost me black country accent. And of course, when I became a tenor, I started doing things like The Merry Widow, you know, the leads in The Merry Widow, and I sang the tenor line in The White Horse Inn, and then I did the gypsy in Gypsy Love. And I started doing things like that, and of course when I sang, I think Gypsy Love was the first one I did with as a tenor, and I auditioned for the part, and I can always remember our accompanist, who was a teacher at the School of Music, by the way, and she used to play for all the big opera singers at the town hall. And she looked at me absolutely gobsmacked. And she said, what happened, George? I said, what do you mean? She says, well, where did you get that lovely voice from? I said, I've had singing lessons. I've been having singing lessons for 2.5 years. And she went, my God, she says, you never told anybody. I suppose I never bothered at all, you know. And of course, playing comedy parts, you don't usually that baritone, you see, so you get stuck with him. And anyway, after that, I played Gabriel Eisenstein in Die Fledermaus, and I've got a tape, actually, here, of that. And the BBC actually took the recording. And I've got a recording on tape of me doing Die Fledermaus, and it's absolutely brilliant. It is, honestly. And since then, I've played. They went off, and I carried on and did all my things, and I've played various parts and been in various societies and enjoyed myself. And the only tragedy I've had is I've lost my wife. With the love of my life, 7. I says, and that's the biggest tragedy in my life, that is. I says, because I really loved her. And I'll always love her till the day I die. And somebody said to me, how you going on, George, once? And I said, well, I've lost the love of my life. I said, but the only thing I've got is me singing. I said, which she used to like me to do. This is for the future generations. If you want to talk to people, mix, have parties, enjoy yourself, leave the fighting out of it. If you're going to get drunk and start fighting, don't get drunk. It's as simple as that. Me, if I get drunk, I fall asleep, fortunately. But don't fight. Just talk. And it's surprising how many people you'll get to know and how many friends you make. And it's wonderful like that. Don't get your head down in your phone. I've noticed it's very noticeable that people nowadays walk around with their heads down in the phone and nobody talks to each other. And I reckon the art of conversation is dying. And that's all I'd like to leave you with. Stay friendly with each other.